Hi guys, welcome back to another deep dive into one of history's most fascinating and mysterious subjects. Tonight, we're going to embark on an incredible journey through time, exploring the secrets that lie buried beneath the golden sands of Egypt. We'll uncover the hidden chambers of ancient tombs, reveal the intricate rituals of mummification, and discover the treasures that were meant to accompany pharaohs into the afterlife. From the Great Pyramid of Giza to the recently discovered tomb of Tutankhamun, we'll explore how these magnificent structures were built, what they contain, and why they continue to captivate archaeologists and historians around the world. We'll delve into the religious beliefs that drove the ancient Egyptians to create these elaborate burial sites, examine the incredible craftsmanship of the artifacts found within, and learn about the curses and mysteries that have surrounded these tombs for thousands of years. Okay, friends, before you settle in, if you enjoy this kind of deep dive content, then click the like button and don't forget to subscribe. And yes, leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. I really enjoy seeing where everyone is listening from. Now, dim the lights and turn on the fan, and let's dive into tonight's journey together. The story of ancient Egyptian tombs begins over 4,000 years ago in a civilization that would become one of the most remarkable in human history. The ancient Egyptians possessed a profound understanding of architecture, engineering, and spirituality that allowed them to create monuments that continue to astound us today. Their obsession with the afterlife and their belief in the continuation of existence beyond death drove them to construct elaborate burial chambers that served as gateways between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. The earliest Egyptian burial practices were relatively simple, with bodies being buried in shallow graves in the desert sand. The natural dehydrating properties of the sand helped preserve the bodies, leading the Egyptians to believe that preservation of the physical form was essential for the soul's journey in the afterlife. These early burials, dating back to the pre-dynastic period around 5000 BCE, were often accompanied by simple grave goods, such as pottery vessels containing food and water for the deceased's journey into the afterlife. The transition from these simple pit burials to more elaborate structures occurred gradually over centuries. During the early dynastic period, around 3100 BCE, the ruling elite began to construct more substantial burial monuments that reflected their elevated status in society. These early tombs featured rectangular mud brick superstructures built over underground burial chambers, a design that would later evolve into the mastaba tomb. The development of writing systems during this period also played a crucial role in the evolution of burial practices. Hieroglyphic inscriptions began to appear on tomb walls and burial goods, providing the deceased with magical spells and religious texts to aid them in the afterlife. These early inscriptions were the predecessors of the elaborate religious programs that would later adorn the walls of pyramids and rock-cut tombs. The concept of divine kingship, which emerged during the early dynastic period, fundamentally changed the nature of royal burial practices. The pharaoh was believed to be a living god, a manifestation of the falcon deity Horus, who would become one with Osiris upon death. This divine status necessitated burial practices that were far more elaborate than those of ordinary mortals, leading to the construction of increasingly magnificent tomb complexes. The geographical setting of ancient Egypt also played a significant role in shaping burial practices. The Nile River divided the land into the realm of the living on the east bank, where the sun rose each day, and the realm of the dead on the west bank, where the sun set each evening. This cosmological understanding led to the establishment of vast necropolis sites on the west bank of the Nile, where the dead could join the sun god Ra in his nightly journey through the underworld. Over time, these simple burials evolved into increasingly complex ceremonies and structures, eventually culminating in the construction of the Great Pyramids and the elaborate tomb complexes that we know today. The development of mummification techniques represents one of the most significant advances in ancient Egyptian burial practices. The process began around 2600 BCE and continued to evolve for over 3 millennia. The Egyptians believed that the body needed to be preserved in order for the soul, or Ka, to recognize it in the afterlife. This belief led to the development of sophisticated preservation techniques that involved the removal of internal organs, the use of natron salt for dehydration, and the careful wrapping of the body in linen bandages. The religious foundations underlying mummification were deeply rooted in Egyptian mythology, particularly the story of Osiris. According to legend, Osiris was murdered by his jealous brother Set, who dismembered the body and scattered the pieces throughout Egypt. Isis, the devoted wife of Osiris, searched for and recovered all the pieces, then used her magical powers to reassemble and reanimate her husband, making him the first mummy. This myth established mummification as a sacred process that could grant eternal life to the deceased. The earliest attempts at artificial preservation were crude by later standards, but represented important steps in the development of mummification technology. During the 4th dynasty, embalmers began experimenting with different preservation techniques, including the use of resin-soaked bandages and the application of various oils and unguents to the body. These early efforts were often unsuccessful, resulting in poorly preserved mummies that decomposed rapidly. The perfection of mummification techniques occurred during the Middle Kingdom period, around 2000 BCE, when embalmers developed standardized procedures that consistently produced well-preserved mummies. The process became increasingly sophisticated during the New Kingdom, reaching its pinnacle during the 21st dynasty, when embalmers created some of the most beautifully preserved mummies ever discovered. Different levels of mummification were available depending on the wealth and social status of the deceased. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian who visited Egypt around 450 BCE, described 3 different grades of mummification offered by Egyptian embalmers. The most expensive method involved the complete removal of internal organs, extensive use of natron salt, and elaborate wrapping with fine linen bandages. The middle grade preserved the body adequately, but used less expensive materials and simpler techniques. The cheapest option involved minimal preservation efforts and was available to those of modest means. The social aspects of mummification were also significant, as the process required the participation of family members and religious specialists. The period of mourning and preparation lasted 70 days, during which time the family would make offerings and perform rituals to ensure the successful transition of the deceased to the afterlife. Professional mourners were often hired to lament the death and demonstrate the grief of the family, while priests performed the necessary religious ceremonies. The mummification process was both an art and a science, requiring skilled practitioners who understood the intricacies of human anatomy and the properties of various preservative substances. The process typically took 70 days to complete and involved multiple stages of preparation and preservation. First, the body would be washed and purified. Then, the internal organs would be carefully removed through small incisions. The brain was extracted through the nasal passages using specialized tools, while the organs of the chest and abdomen were removed and separately preserved in canopic jars. The tools used by embalmers were specialized instruments designed specifically for the mummification process. Bronze hooks with curved ends were used to extract brain tissue through the nasal passages, while sharp knives made from obsidian or bronze were employed to make the initial incision in the abdomen. Long bronze probes were used to break up internal organs before removal, and various spoons and spatulas helped with the extraction process. The chemical knowledge required for successful mummification was considerable. Embalmers had to understand the properties of natron salt, which was mined from natural deposits in the Wadi Natron northwest of Cairo. They also used various resins imported from far-off lands, including frankincense from Somalia, cedar oil from Lebanon, and bitumen from the Dead Sea region. These materials were expensive, and their proper application required years of training and experience. The workshop areas where mummification took place were typically located away from populated areas due to the strong odors and unsanitary conditions associated with the process. These facilities included preparation tables, storage areas for materials and tools, and spaces for the lengthy drying process. Recent archaeological excavations have uncovered several mummification workshops, providing detailed information about the organization and methods used by ancient embalmers. The training of embalmers was a lengthy process that often involved apprenticeships lasting many years. Master embalmers passed down their knowledge through hands-on instruction and oral tradition, as few written manuals for mummification have survived. The profession was hereditary in many cases, with techniques and trade secrets being closely guarded within family lineages. Quality control in mummification was important, as poorly preserved bodies could decompose rapidly in Egypt's hot climate. Embalmers developed various methods for testing the effectiveness of their preservation techniques, including the examination of previously mummified bodies that had been exposed to the elements. They also experimented with different combinations of preservatives and wrapping materials to achieve optimal results. After the removal of the organs, the body cavity would be cleaned and packed with natron salt, a naturally occurring mixture of sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate that drew moisture from the tissues. The body would remain in natron for approximately 40 days, during which time the salt would completely dehydrate the tissues, preventing decay and bacterial growth. Once the dehydration process was complete, the body would be removed from the natron and carefully cleaned before being wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen bandages. The natron used in mummification was primarily sourced from the Wadi Natron, a depression in the western desert about 65 kilometers northwest of Cairo. This natural salt lake provided high-quality natron that contained the ideal mixture of minerals for preservation. The harvesting and processing of natron became a specialized industry, with workers traveling to the remote desert location during the dry season to collect the crystallized salt deposits. The preparation of natron from mummification required careful processing to remove impurities and achieve the correct particle size. Large crystals were ground into powder using stone mills, while foreign materials such as sand and organic debris were carefully removed. The quality of natron could significantly affect the success of the preservation process, making its preparation a critical aspect of the mummification industry. Different grades of natron were used for different purposes during mummification. The finest quality salt was reserved for packing body cavities, while coarser grades were used for external treatments and preliminary cleaning. Some embalmers also used natron solutions for washing the body before and after the dehydration process, ensuring complete removal of bodily fluids and potential sources of decay. The timing of the natron treatment was crucial for successful mummification. Bodies that remained in natron for too short a period would retain moisture and eventually decompose, while excessive exposure could cause the tissues to become brittle and fragile. Master embalmers developed techniques for monitoring the dehydration process, checking the condition of the body at regular intervals to determine the optimal treatment duration. The storage and handling of natron required special facilities and equipment. Large ceramic vessels and stone containers were used to store the salt in dry conditions, protecting it from moisture that could reduce its effectiveness. The workshops where mummification took place included dedicated areas for natron preparation and storage, with careful attention to maintaining the purity of the salt supply. The economic importance of natron extended beyond mummification to include its use in glassmaking, soap production, and textile manufacturing. This versatility made natron a valuable trade commodity that was exported throughout the Mediterranean region. The monopoly that Egypt held over high-quality natron sources contributed to the country's economic prosperity and helped finance the construction of elaborate tomb complexes. The wrapping process itself was highly ritualized and involved the placement of amulets and charms between the layers of bandages. These magical objects were believed to protect the deceased during their journey through the underworld and ensure their successful transition to the afterlife. The most important of these amulets was the heart scarab, which was placed over the heart and inscribed with spells from the Book of the Dead that would ensure the heart would not testify against the deceased during the final judgment. The linen used for mummification was of exceptionally high quality, often imported from specific regions of Egypt known for producing the finest textiles. The flax plants used to make this linen were carefully selected and processed using specialized techniques that produced thread of remarkable strength and fineness. Some mummy wrappings have thread counts that rival modern high-quality fabrics, demonstrating the sophisticated textile technology available to ancient Egyptian craftsmen. The preparation of linen for mummification involved several stages of processing beyond normal textile production. The fabric was bleached using natural alkaline solutions to achieve a pure white color that symbolized purity and rebirth. Special treatments with resins and oils were sometimes applied to the linen to enhance its preservative properties and create additional barriers against moisture and insects. The patterns and techniques used for wrapping mummies evolved over time and varied according to regional traditions and the status of the deceased. Royal mummies were often wrapped using complex patterns that required hundreds of separate pieces of linen, each carefully positioned and secured with resin-soaked strips. The wrapping process for a pharaoh could take several weeks to complete and required the coordinated efforts of multiple skilled embalmers. The symbolic aspects of mummy wrapping were as important as the practical considerations. The crossing patterns of bandages recreated the appearance of the god Osiris, who was traditionally depicted as a wrapped mummy. The number of layers, the direction of wrapping, and the placement of knots all carried religious significance and were carefully prescribed by religious texts and traditions. The economic impact of mummy wrapping was substantial, as it created demand for vast quantities of high-quality linen. Estimates suggest that a single royal mummy might require over 1,000 square meters of linen, representing months of work by skilled textile workers. This demand supported extensive flax cultivation and textile production throughout Egypt, contributing significantly to the economy. The tools used for mummy wrapping included specialized needles, knives, and brushes designed specifically for the embalming process. Bronze needles with curved tips were used to guide bandages around difficult areas of the body, while sharp knives were employed to cut strips to precise lengths. Brushes made from palm fibers were used to apply resins and oils to the bandages during the wrapping process. The preservation of mummy wrappings has provided modern researchers with valuable information about ancient Egyptian textile technology and trade relationships. Analysis of the linen fibers can reveal information about the geographic origin of the flax, while microscopic examination of the weaving patterns provides insights into the tools and techniques used by ancient textile workers. Chemical analysis of resins and dyes found on the wrappings has revealed information about ancient Egyptian knowledge of chemistry and their extensive trade networks. The construction of tombs evolved dramatically over the course of Egyptian history, beginning with simple mastaba tombs and eventually developing into the massive pyramid complexes that dominate the Giza Plateau. The mastaba tomb, which derives its name from the Arabic word for bench due to its rectangular shape, was the earliest form of monumental tomb construction in Egypt. These structures were built from mud brick and later from stone, featuring underground burial chambers accessed through vertical shafts. The architectural elements of mastaba tombs reflected both practical and religious considerations. The solid rectangular superstructure provided protection for the burial chamber while also serving as a platform for religious ceremonies. The walls were often decorated with relief carvings and paintings depicting the deceased in various activities, ensuring their continued existence in the afterlife. False doors carved into the eastern wall allowed the spirit of the deceased to move between the tomb and the world of the living. The interior layout of mastaba tombs became increasingly complex over time. Early examples featured simple burial chambers containing the sarcophagus and basic grave goods. Later mastabas included multiple chambers for different purposes: burial chambers for the deceased and family members, storage rooms for grave goods, and offering chambers where priests could perform daily rituals for the dead. The development of stone construction techniques during the Third Dynasty marked a revolutionary advance in tomb building technology. The transition from mud brick to limestone and granite construction required new tools, methods, and organizational capabilities. Stone blocks had to be quarried, shaped, transported, and precisely fitted together, demanding unprecedented levels of coordination and skill. The step pyramid of Djoser represented the first successful attempt to construct a monumental stone building. The architect Imhotep, who was later deified for his achievements, designed a structure that combined traditional mastaba elements with innovative vertical development. The pyramid began as a traditional mastaba, but was expanded upward in 6 successive stages, creating a stepped profile that symbolized a stairway to heaven. The complex surrounding Djoser's step pyramid was equally innovative, featuring the world's first known stone columns, carved to imitate bundled reeds and palm fronds. The complex included courtyards for the pharaoh's eternal celebration of his Jubilee festival, underground galleries carved with blue-green tiles to represent the primeval waters of creation, and a mortuary temple where priests could perform daily rituals for the deceased king. The engineering challenges involved in constructing the step pyramid were enormous. Workers had to quarry and transport over 850,000 tons of stone, excavate underground galleries extending for over 3 miles, and coordinate the labor of thousands of workers over a period of nearly 2 decades. The success of this project established the technological foundation for all subsequent pyramid construction. The step pyramid of Djoser, built around 2650 BCE at Saqqara, represents the first major innovation in tomb construction and is considered the world's earliest monumental stone building. Designed by the architect Imhotep, the step pyramid rose in 6 distinct tiers to a height of over 200 feet, creating a stairway to heaven for the deceased pharaoh. The pyramid was surrounded by a complex of courtyards, temples, and subsidiary buildings that covered an area of over 37 acres. The evolution from step pyramid to true pyramid occurred during the Fourth Dynasty, with the construction of the pyramids at Medum and Dahshur. The bent pyramid at Dahshur represents a transitional phase in pyramid construction, with its distinctive change in angle partway up the structure. This change was likely due to structural concerns that arose during construction, forcing the builders to reduce the angle of inclination to prevent collapse. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for the pharaoh Khufu around 2580 BCE, represents the pinnacle of pyramid construction and remains one of the most impressive architectural achievements in human history. Originally standing at over 480 feet tall, the Great Pyramid was the tallest man-made structure in the world for over 3,000 years. The precision with which it was constructed is truly remarkable, with the base of the pyramid being level to within just over 2 centimeters and the sides aligned to the cardinal directions with an accuracy of less than 1/20th of a degree. The mathematical principles underlying the Great Pyramid's design demonstrate the advanced knowledge of Egyptian architects and engineers. The pyramid's proportions incorporate the golden ratio and pi, mathematical constants that were not formally described until much later in history. The slope angle of approximately 51.8 degrees was carefully calculated to achieve optimal structural stability while maintaining the pyramid's symbolic significance as a representation of the primeval mound from which creation emerged. The quarrying operations required for the Great Pyramid were massive undertakings that involved workers at multiple sites across Egypt. The core blocks were quarried from local limestone deposits near Giza, while the finer casing stones came from quarries at Tura, about 10 miles south of the pyramid site. The granite used for the internal chambers was quarried at Aswan, nearly 500 miles to the south, and transported down the Nile River on specially constructed barges. The transportation of stone blocks from quarry to construction site required innovative engineering solutions. Wooden sledges pulled by teams of workers were used to move blocks across land, while the Nile River provided a natural highway for long-distance transport. During the annual flood season, temporary harbors were constructed near pyramid sites to facilitate the unloading of stone blocks from river barges. The construction workforce for the Great Pyramid was enormous, with recent estimates suggesting that between 20 and 30,000 workers were involved in the project at its peak. These workers included skilled stonemasons, engineers, and supervisors, as well as large numbers of laborers responsible for moving and positioning the massive stone blocks. The organization and coordination of such a large workforce represented a remarkable achievement in project management. The logistics of feeding, housing, and managing this enormous workforce required sophisticated administrative systems and substantial resources. Archaeological evidence suggests that specialized agricultural areas were developed to produce food for the pyramid builders, while extensive storage facilities were constructed to hold grain, meat, and other provisions. The daily consumption of food by the workforce has been estimated at several tons, requiring constant supply convoys from throughout Egypt. The seasonal nature of pyramid construction was closely tied to the annual Nile flood cycle. During the inundation period, when agricultural work was impossible, farmers and laborers could be recruited for construction projects. The flood also facilitated the transportation of heavy stone blocks by allowing boats to approach closer to the construction sites. This seasonal workforce supplemented the core group of permanent skilled workers who remained at the site year-round. The medical care provided to pyramid workers was surprisingly comprehensive, with evidence of surgical procedures, bone setting, and treatment of various injuries and illnesses. Papyrus medical texts from the period describe treatments for wounds, broken bones, and other conditions common among construction workers. The provision of medical care demonstrates the value placed on maintaining a healthy workforce and suggests that pyramid construction was a state-sponsored enterprise with significant resources. The social organization of pyramid construction crews was hierarchical and well-defined, with clear chains of command and specialized roles for different types of workers. Gang names inscribed on pyramid blocks reveal that construction teams had distinct identities and competed with each other to achieve production goals. These inscriptions provide insights into worker morale and the social dynamics of large construction projects. The training and skill development required for pyramid construction created a class of specialized craftsmen whose expertise was essential for maintaining Egypt's monumental building tradition. These skills were passed down through generations of families, creating craft traditions that lasted for centuries. The technical knowledge developed during pyramid construction was later applied to the building of temples, tombs, and other monumental structures throughout Egyptian history. The economic impact of pyramid construction extended far beyond the immediate costs of materials and labor. The projects stimulated demand for tools, equipment, food, and other supplies that supported industries throughout Egypt. The need for copper tools, rope, baskets, and other equipment created employment opportunities in regions far from the construction sites. The long-term economic effects of pyramid construction helped establish Egypt as a major power in the ancient world. Recent archaeological discoveries have provided new insights into the daily lives of pyramid builders. Excavations near the Giza pyramids have uncovered workers' villages complete with dormitories, kitchens, breweries, and medical facilities. Analysis of skeletal remains from these sites shows that workers received adequate nutrition and medical care, contradicting earlier assumptions that the pyramids were built by slave labor. The tools used in pyramid construction were relatively simple but effective. Copper and bronze chisels, wooden mallets, and stone hammers were the primary implements used for quarrying and shaping stone blocks. Ramps and levers made from wood were employed to move and position blocks, while plumb lines and measuring rods ensured accurate construction. Despite their simplicity, these tools were sufficient to create monuments of extraordinary precision and durability. The construction of the Great Pyramid required an enormous workforce and sophisticated organizational skills. Recent estimates suggest that the pyramid contains approximately 2.5 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 15 tons. The logistics of quarrying, transporting, and positioning these massive blocks required innovative techniques and technologies that continue to puzzle researchers today. The internal structure of the Great Pyramid is equally impressive, featuring a complex system of passages and chambers that were designed to confuse tomb robbers and protect the pharaoh's burial. The pyramid contains 3 main chambers: the subterranean chamber, carved into the bedrock beneath the pyramid, the queen's chamber, located within the pyramid itself, and the king's chamber, situated near the center of the structure. The king's chamber houses a granite sarcophagus that was likely intended to contain the pharaoh's mummy, though no remains have ever been found within the pyramid. The construction sequence of these chambers reveals important information about the evolution of the pyramid's design during the building process. Archaeological evidence suggests that the original plan called for a simple subterranean burial chamber, similar to earlier pyramid designs. However, during construction, the plans were modified to include the Queen's Chamber, and later changed again to create the King's Chamber at a higher level within the pyramid structure. The precision of the internal chambers is remarkable, with walls that are perfectly vertical and corners that form exact right angles. The granite blocks used to line the king's chamber were fitted together with such accuracy that it is impossible to insert a knife blade between the joints. This level of precision required sophisticated measuring instruments and construction techniques that demonstrate the advanced engineering capabilities of the pyramid builders. The acoustic properties of the pyramid's chambers have been the subject of considerable study and speculation. The king's chamber exhibits unique resonant frequencies that may have been intentionally designed to enhance religious ceremonies or serve specific ritual purposes. Modern acoustic analysis has revealed that the chamber amplifies certain tones while dampening others, suggesting that the ancient builders possessed sophisticated understanding of sound engineering. The ventilation system of the Great Pyramid represents another remarkable engineering achievement. 4 narrow shafts extend from the king's and queen's chambers toward the exterior of the pyramid, providing air circulation to the interior spaces. Recent investigations have revealed that these shafts were precisely aligned with specific stars and constellations, suggesting that they served astronomical as well as practical functions. The mystery of the pyramid's missing capstone has puzzled researchers for centuries. Historical accounts suggest that the pyramid was originally topped with a pyramidion made of gold or electrum, but no trace of this element has ever been found. The loss of the capstone, along with most of the smooth limestone casing stones, has significantly altered the pyramid's appearance from its original form. The hidden passages and chambers within the Great Pyramid continue to be discovered through the application of modern technology. Recent surveys using cosmic ray muography have identified previously unknown void spaces within the pyramid structure, suggesting that additional chambers may remain undiscovered. These findings have renewed interest in the pyramid's internal organization and the possibility of finding intact burial chambers. The symbolic significance of the Great Pyramid's internal layout reflects complex religious beliefs about the afterlife journey of the pharaoh. The ascending passages represent the soul's journey toward the heavens, while the various chambers correspond to different stages of the transformation from mortality to divine status. The precise astronomical alignments of the pyramid and its internal features demonstrate the integration of religious beliefs with sophisticated astronomical knowledge. One of the most intriguing features of the Great Pyramid is the Grand Gallery, a magnificent corbelled passage that rises at a 26-degree angle through the heart of the pyramid. The gallery measures over 150 feet in length and 28 feet in height, with walls constructed from precisely fitted granite blocks. The purpose of this elaborate passage remains a subject of debate among Egyptologists, with theories ranging from its use as a construction ramp to its function as a ceremonial pathway for the pharaoh's burial. The architectural sophistication of the Grand Gallery demonstrates the advanced engineering capabilities of the pyramid builders. The corbelled ceiling, constructed without the use of arches, required precise calculation to ensure structural stability under the enormous weight of the pyramid above. Each granite block was carefully shaped and positioned to distribute the load evenly, creating a self-supporting structure that has remained intact for over 4 millennia. The function of the mysterious granite plugs that block the ascending passage has been extensively debated by researchers. These three massive granite blocks, each weighing several tons, were apparently slid into position after the pharaoh's burial to seal the upper chambers of the pyramid. The mechanism by which these blocks were positioned and the reason for their specific placement continue to puzzle archaeologists and engineers. The ventilation shafts that extend from the Grand Gallery represent another remarkable engineering achievement. These narrow passages, only 8 inches square, extend through hundreds of feet of solid stone to reach the exterior surface of the pyramid. The precision required to maintain the correct angle and direction over such distances demonstrates the sophisticated surveying and engineering capabilities of the ancient builders. The relationship between the Grand Gallery and the pyramid's internal chronometer system has been proposed by various researchers. Some theories suggest that the gallery's dimensions and proportions encode important astronomical and mathematical information, serving as a kind of stone computer for calculating celestial events. While these theories remain controversial, they highlight the remarkable precision and intentionality evident in the pyramid's design. The acoustic properties of the Grand Gallery have been studied extensively, revealing unique sound characteristics that may have served ritual or practical purposes. The corbelled ceiling creates complex resonance patterns that amplify certain frequencies while dampening others. Some researchers have suggested that these acoustic properties were intentionally designed to enhance religious ceremonies or facilitate communication within the pyramid. The mystery of how the massive granite beams that form the Grand Gallery's roof were positioned during construction continues to challenge our understanding of ancient Egyptian building techniques. These beams, some weighing over 40 tons, had to be raised to a considerable height within the pyramid structure and precisely positioned to create the gallery's distinctive profile. The logistics of this operation required innovative lifting and positioning techniques that pushed the boundaries of ancient engineering. The symbolic significance of the Grand Gallery within the pyramid's overall religious program relates to the pharaoh's journey through the afterlife. The ascending passage represents the soul's ascent toward the celestial realm, while the gallery itself may symbolize the Hall of Judgment, where the deceased would encounter various deities and challenges. The precise astronomical alignments of the gallery supports its interpretation as an architectural representation of celestial geography. The Valley of the Kings, located on the west bank of the Nile River near Luxor, represents another significant development in ancient Egyptian tomb construction. Beginning around 1550 BCE, the pharaohs of the New Kingdom abandoned pyramid construction in favor of rock-cut tombs carved deep into the limestone cliffs of this remote valley. The decision to move away from pyramids was likely motivated by security concerns, as the massive monuments served as obvious targets for tomb robbers. The geological characteristics of the Valley of the Kings made it an ideal location for tomb construction. The limestone cliffs provided stable bedrock that could be carved into elaborate underground chambers, while the valley's remote location and narrow entrance made it easier to guard and protect. The absence of rainfall in this desert environment also helped preserve the delicate wall paintings and artifacts placed within the tombs. The selection of individual tomb sites within the valley followed specific criteria related to geology, accessibility, and religious symbolism. Royal architects carefully examined the rock formations to identify areas with stable limestone that would not collapse during excavation. They also considered the orientation of tombs in relation to important astronomical events and religious landmarks. The planning and design of royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings involved complex architectural and religious programs. Each tomb was unique, designed specifically for its intended occupant, and incorporating personalized elements related to their reign and religious preferences. However, all royal tombs shared certain common features, including descending corridors that symbolized the sun god's journey through the underworld, multiple chambers for different burial purposes, and elaborate decorative programs based on religious texts. The excavation process for rock-cut tombs required different techniques than those used for pyramid construction. Workers used copper and bronze tools to chip away at the limestone, creating passages and chambers according to detailed architectural plans. The excavated stone was carried out of the tomb in baskets and disposed of at designated dump sites, some of which have been identified by modern archaeologists. Ventilation was a major challenge in deep rock-cut tombs, as workers needed fresh air to breathe and sufficient light to see their work. Egyptians developed ingenious solutions, including air shafts that connected deep chambers to the surface, and systems of mirrors that could direct sunlight into tomb interiors. Oil lamps provided additional illumination, though their use was limited due to fire hazards and smoke production. The decoration of tomb walls required careful planning and coordination between different groups of craftsmen. Preliminary sketches were drawn on papyrus or pottery shards, then transferred to the tomb walls using grid systems that ensured proper proportions and placement. Sculptors carved the relief decorations into the limestone surface, followed by painters who applied mineral pigments to create the colorful scenes we see today. The Valley of the Kings contains 63 known tombs, ranging from simple pit graves to elaborate multi-chambered complexes that extend hundreds of feet into the bedrock. The most famous of these tombs is that of Tutankhamun, discovered largely intact by Howard Carter in 1922. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb provided unprecedented insight into the burial practices and material culture of ancient Egypt, as it contained over 5,000 artifacts that had remained undisturbed for over 3 millennia. The organization of tomb construction in the Valley of the Kings required sophisticated project management and resource allocation. Each royal tomb was a major undertaking that employed dozens of skilled craftsmen for periods ranging from several years to over a decade. The coordination of these multiple simultaneous projects required careful scheduling of resources and personnel to ensure that all royal burials could be completed according to the pharaoh's wishes. The security measures implemented in the Valley of the Kings were extensive and included both physical barriers and administrative controls. Guards were stationed at the valley entrance and along the access roads to monitor visitors and prevent unauthorized entry. Special passes were required for workers and officials, while valuable materials and tools were carefully inventoried and secured when not in use. Despite these precautions, tomb robbery remained a persistent problem throughout Egyptian history. The water management systems developed for the Valley of the Kings demonstrate sophisticated engineering solutions to the challenges of desert construction. Flash floods posed a significant threat to tomb construction and preservation, requiring the development of drainage systems and flood barriers to protect the work sites. These engineering works included diversion channels, retention basins, and reinforced tomb entrances designed to withstand periodic flooding. The administrative records from Deir el-Medina provide detailed information about the organization and management of tomb construction projects. These papyrus documents include work schedules, material requisitions, quality control reports, and personnel evaluations that reveal the complexity of ancient Egyptian project management. The records show that tomb construction was subject to regular inspection and evaluation by government officials. The specialized tools and equipment used in the Valley of the Kings were designed specifically for rock cutting and tomb construction. Bronze chisels with reinforced cutting edges were used for rough stone removal, while finer tools made from harder metals were employed for detailed carving work. Wooden mallets, stone hammers, and copper saws completed the basic toolkit, supplemented by measuring devices, levels, and plumb lines for ensuring accuracy. The artistic workshops associated with Valley of the Kings tomb construction were highly organized enterprises that produced standardized decorative elements while allowing for customization according to individual royal requirements. Master artists created detailed drawings and templates that were used by teams of craftsmen to ensure consistency in decorative programs. These workshops also trained apprentices and maintained libraries of religious texts and artistic references. The environmental impact of tomb construction in the Valley of the Kings was considerable, requiring the removal of thousands of tons of limestone debris and the consumption of large quantities of water and other resources. The disposal of excavated rock created artificial hills and valleys that permanently altered the local landscape. The demand for wood, rope, and other organic materials contributed to deforestation and resource depletion in surrounding areas. The tomb of Tutankhamun consists of 4 small rooms: the antechamber, the burial chamber, the treasury, and the annex. Despite its relatively modest size compared to other royal tombs in the valley, the tomb contained an incredible wealth of grave goods, including the pharaoh's famous golden burial mask, elaborate jewelry, furniture, weapons, and religious artifacts. The burial chamber contained 4 nested shrines that protected a stone sarcophagus, within which were 3 anthropoid coffins, the innermost made of solid gold. The discovery process of Tutankhamun's tomb was methodical and painstaking, taking nearly 10 years to complete. Howard Carter and his team photographed and cataloged every single object before removing it from the tomb, creating an unprecedented archaeological record. This meticulous documentation provided invaluable information about ancient Egyptian burial practices and the material culture of the New Kingdom period. The preservation conditions within Tutankhamun's tomb were exceptional, allowing for the survival of organic materials that normally would have decomposed over time. Leather sandals, wooden furniture, papyrus scrolls, and even food offerings remained in remarkable condition after more than 3 millennia. This preservation was due to the tomb's sealed environment and the dry climate of the Valley of the Kings. The artistic program of Tutankhamun's tomb, while limited due to the chamber's small size, provides important insights into New Kingdom religious beliefs and artistic styles. The burial chamber walls feature scenes from the Amduat, showing the young pharaoh's journey through the underworld, while the golden shrine panels depict various deities protecting and guiding the deceased king. These decorations were executed with exceptional skill and attention to detail. The grave goods found in Tutankhamun's tomb represent the full range of objects that were considered necessary for the afterlife. Personal items such as clothing, jewelry, and cosmetics ensured that the pharaoh would maintain his royal appearance in death. Weapons and hunting equipment reflected his role as a warrior king, while religious artifacts and amulets provided magical protection. Furniture and household items recreated the comforts of palace life for the deceased ruler. The scientific analysis of materials from Tutankhamun's tomb has revealed fascinating details about ancient Egyptian technology and trade relationships. Gold objects were found to contain trace elements that allow researchers to identify their sources, while glass and faience artifacts demonstrate sophisticated knowledge of ceramic and glass-making techniques. Imported materials from as far away as Afghanistan and sub-Saharan Africa illustrate the extensive trade networks that supplied the Egyptian court. The mummy of Tutankhamun itself has been subjected to extensive study using modern medical imaging techniques. CT scans have revealed details about the young pharaoh's health, age at death, and the mummification process used to preserve his body. Evidence suggests that he died around age 19, possibly from complications related to a leg fracture, though the exact cause of death remains controversial among researchers. The wall paintings in the tomb of Tutankhamun depict scenes from the pharaoh's journey through the underworld based on religious texts such as the Amduat, or That Which Is in the Afterworld. These paintings show the deceased king being welcomed by various deities and navigating the challenges of the afterlife. The artwork demonstrates the sophisticated understanding of religious symbolism and artistic technique that characterized ancient Egyptian culture. The tomb of Seti I, also located in the Valley of the Kings, represents one of the most elaborately decorated burial sites in ancient Egypt. The tomb extends over 400 feet into the cliff face and descends to a depth of nearly 100 feet below the valley floor. The walls of the tomb are covered with intricate paintings and relief carvings that depict the complete text of several important funerary books, including the Amduat, the Book of Gates, and the Book of the Dead. The artistic program in Seti's tomb is remarkable for its completeness and the quality of its execution. The paintings retain much of their original color and detail, providing modern viewers with a vivid impression of how these tombs appeared when they were first completed. The astronomical ceiling in the burial chamber is particularly noteworthy, featuring detailed depictions of constellations and celestial deities that guided the deceased through the nighttime journey of the sun god Ra. The construction of these elaborate tombs required teams of skilled craftsmen who worked for years to complete a single burial site. The village of Deir el-Medina, located near the Valley of the Kings, was home to the workers who carved and decorated the royal tombs. Archaeological excavations at this site have revealed fascinating details about the daily lives of these artisans, including their work schedules, pay disputes, and religious practices. The workers at Deir el-Medina were organized into two gangs, each consisting of approximately 20 men. These teams worked in rotation, with one gang working for 10 days while the other rested. The work was physically demanding and required considerable skill, as the artisans had to work by lamplight in cramped, dusty conditions deep within the tombs. Despite these challenges, they produced some of the finest artistic works in human history. The social organization of Deir el-Medina was complex and hierarchical, with clear distinctions between different categories of workers. Foremen supervised the work gangs and reported to government officials responsible for tomb construction. Scribes kept detailed records of work progress, material usage, and worker attendance. Skilled craftsmen specialized in different aspects of tomb construction, including stone cutters, plasterers, outline draftsmen, painters, and sculptors. The daily life of tomb workers was well documented through thousands of ostraca, limestone flakes, and pottery shards used as writing material. These records reveal details about work schedules, wage payments, family relationships, and community disputes. Workers were paid in rations of grain, vegetables, fish, and other commodities, with additional payments for overtime work or special projects. The village of Deir el-Medina was entirely dependent on government support for its survival, as it was located in the desert far from agricultural areas. Supply deliveries arrived regularly from the Nile Valley, bringing food, water, tools, and other necessities. The organization of these supply chains required careful coordination and substantial resources, reflecting the importance placed on tomb construction by the pharaonic administration. Medical care for tomb workers was provided by village doctors who treated injuries and illnesses common among construction workers. Archaeological evidence suggests that workers received treatment for eye problems caused by working in dusty conditions, joint pain from heavy labor, and injuries from accidents with tools. The community also included midwives who assisted with childbirth and cared for children. The religious life of Deir el-Medina was rich and varied, with workers participating in festivals, maintaining personal shrines, and commissioning their own tomb chapels. The village had several temples dedicated to different deities, including Ptah, the patron god of craftsmen, and Meretseger, a cobra goddess who protected the royal necropolis. Workers often sought divine guidance for personal problems and professional challenges. The education of children in Deir el-Medina focused on preparing them for careers in tomb construction and decoration. Boys learned to read and write hieroglyphic and hieratic scripts, studied religious texts, and received training in artistic techniques. Many sons followed their fathers into the same professions, creating family traditions that lasted for generations. The tools used by the tomb builders were relatively simple but effective. Copper and bronze chisels were used to carve the initial rough shapes, while harder stone tools were employed for fine detail work. The paintings were created using mineral pigments mixed with water and a binding agent, applied to walls that had been carefully smoothed and covered with a thin layer of plaster. The artists worked from detailed plans and sketches, ensuring that the religious and artistic program of each tomb followed established traditions and conventions. The religious beliefs that motivated the construction of these elaborate tombs were central to ancient Egyptian culture and remained remarkably consistent throughout their long history. The Egyptians believed that death was not an end, but a transformation, a passage from one state of existence to another. The physical body, the spiritual essence or ka, and the personality or ba all played important roles in this transition, and the proper preservation and protection of these elements was essential for achieving immortality. The concept of multiple souls was fundamental to Egyptian religious thought and directly influenced burial practices. The Ka was the life force that animated the body during life and required food offerings and a physical form to sustain it after death. The Ba represented the individual personality and could travel between the tomb and the afterlife, but needed to return to the preserved body each night. The Ach was the transformed spirit that achieved immortality through proper mummification and burial rituals. The afterlife geography described in Egyptian religious texts was complex and detailed, featuring multiple levels and regions that the deceased would encounter during their journey. The Duat, or underworld, was divided into 12 hours, corresponding to the night journey of the sun god Ra. Each hour presented different challenges and required specific knowledge and magical protection to navigate successfully. The solar mythology that dominated Egyptian religion profoundly influenced tomb construction and decoration. The daily cycle of the sun's journey across the sky and through the underworld provided a template for understanding death and resurrection. Tombs were oriented to align with solar events, and their decorative programs often depicted the deceased joining Ra's solar bark for the eternal journey through the heavens. The democratization of afterlife beliefs occurred gradually over Egyptian history, with religious concepts originally reserved for pharaohs eventually becoming accessible to wealthy private individuals. The pyramid texts, first appearing in the Pyramid of Unas around 2375 BCE, contained spells and incantations designed to ensure the pharaoh's successful transformation into a god. These texts later evolved into the coffin texts of the Middle Kingdom and the Book of the Dead of the New Kingdom, making afterlife knowledge available to a broader segment of society. The ethical dimensions of ancient Egyptian religion emphasized the importance of living a moral life in preparation for the afterlife judgment. The concept of Ma'at, representing truth, justice, and cosmic order, provided the standard by which the deceased would be evaluated. Those who lived according to Ma'at's principles could expect to achieve immortality, while those who violated moral laws faced destruction in the afterlife. The role of magic in Egyptian religion was central to both daily life and afterlife beliefs. Magical spells, amulets, and rituals were considered essential for protection against the dangers of the underworld. The knowledge of these magical practices was carefully guarded by priests and professional magicians, and access to powerful spells often depended on one's social status and wealth. The journey through the afterlife was conceived as a dangerous passage through the underworld, where the deceased would face various challenges and obstacles before reaching the presence of Osiris, the god of the dead. The Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and instructions for navigating the afterlife, served as a guidebook for this journey. Copies of these texts were often included among the grave goods placed in tombs, providing the deceased with the knowledge necessary to overcome the perils they would encounter. The judgment of the dead was perhaps the most critical moment in the afterlife journey. According to Egyptian belief, the heart of the deceased would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was found to be lighter than the feather, indicating a life lived in accordance with divine law, the deceased would be granted eternal life. If the heart was heavy with sin, it would be devoured by Ammit, a fearsome creature with the head of a crocodile, the torso of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. The elaborate grave goods found in Egyptian tombs were intended to provide the deceased with everything they might need in the afterlife. These items ranged from everyday objects like clothing, furniture, and food to magical amulets and religious texts designed to ensure safe passage through the underworld. The quantity and quality of grave goods varied according to the wealth and status of the deceased, with royal burials containing treasures of incomparable richness and beauty. The selection and placement of grave goods followed established religious and cultural protocols that evolved over time. Furniture items were often miniaturized versions of full-sized pieces, designed to serve the deceased's needs without taking up excessive space in the tomb. Food offerings included both real provisions and symbolic representations, carved from stone or modeled from clay, ensuring an eternal supply of sustenance. The production of grave goods supported extensive networks of specialized craftsmen who created objects specifically for burial purposes. Workshops throughout Egypt produced shabti figures, canopic jars, amulets, and other funerary items that were sold to families preparing for burial. The quality and materials of these objects varied according to their intended purchasers, from simple clay figures for modest burials to elaborate golden artifacts for royal tombs. The symbolic meanings embedded in grave goods were as important as their practical functions. Every object placed in a tomb carried religious significance and was chosen for its ability to aid the deceased in the afterlife. Colors, materials, shapes, and decorative motifs all conveyed specific meanings that would have been understood by ancient Egyptians but require careful interpretation by modern scholars. The international trade networks that supplied materials for grave goods extended throughout the ancient world. Gold came from Nubia, cedarwood from Lebanon, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, and ivory from sub-Sahara Africa. These exotic materials were reserved for the most important burials and demonstrated the deceased's elevated status in society. The maintenance and replacement of grave goods was an ongoing responsibility for the families of the deceased. Priests were employed to perform daily offering rituals, replacing perishable food items and maintaining the oil lamps that illuminated tomb chapels. Endowments established by wealthy families funded these activities for generations, ensuring the continued care of their ancestors. The recycling and reuse of grave goods was common throughout Egyptian history, particularly during periods of economic hardship. Tomb robbers not only stole valuable items, but also sold them back into the legitimate market, where they might be purchased for use in other burials. This practice has complicated modern efforts to trace the provenance and original context of many museum artifacts. The famous golden burial mask of Tutankhamun exemplifies the extraordinary craftsmanship and artistic achievement of ancient Egyptian goldsmiths and jewelers. Made from over 20 pounds of solid gold and inlaid with precious stones and colored glass, the mask served both practical and symbolic purposes. It protected the face of the mummy while also serving as an idealized representation of the deceased king, incorporating divine attributes and symbols that ensured his transformation into a god in the afterlife. The technical achievement represented by Tutankhamun's burial mask demonstrates the sophisticated metalworking capabilities of ancient Egyptian craftsmen. The mask was created using the repoussé technique, in which thin sheets of gold were hammered from the reverse side to create the three-dimensional facial features. This process required exceptional skill and experience, as mistakes could not easily be corrected without starting over with new materials. The symbolic program incorporated into the burial mask draws from multiple aspects of Egyptian religious belief and royal ideology. The Nemes headdress, striped in gold and blue glass, identifies the deceased as a pharaoh, while the uraeus serpent and vulture on the forehead represent the protective deities of Upper and Lower Egypt. The false beard attached to the chin associates the king with Osiris, the god of the dead, while the elaborate collar incorporates protective symbols and divine emblems. The precious materials used in the burial mask were sourced from throughout the ancient world, demonstrating the extensive trade networks that supplied the Egyptian court. The gold came from Nubian mines in southern Egypt and Sudan, while the lapis lazuli was imported from Afghanistan over 2,000 miles away. The carnelian, turquoise, and other semi-precious stones were obtained from various sources throughout the Eastern Desert and Sinai Peninsula. The conservation challenges posed by Tutankhamun's burial mask have required innovative approaches and international cooperation. The mask suffered damage during its initial discovery and removal from the tomb, requiring careful restoration work to repair cracks and stabilize loose inlays. Modern conservation efforts have involved detailed documentation, scientific analysis of materials, and the development of specialized techniques for treating composite objects made from multiple materials. The cultural impact of Tutankhamun's burial mask extends far beyond its archaeological significance to encompass its role as one of the world's most recognizable artistic masterpieces. The mask has inspired countless reproductions, artistic interpretations, and design motifs that have influenced everything from jewelry and fashion to architecture and graphic design. Its image has become synonymous with ancient Egyptian civilization and continues to fascinate audiences around the world. The scientific analysis of the burial mask has revealed important information about ancient Egyptian goldsmithing techniques and the organization of royal workshops. X-ray examination has shown the internal structure of the mask and revealed details about its construction that are not visible to the naked eye. Chemical analysis of the gold alloy has provided information about the sources of the metal and the refining techniques used by ancient craftsmen. The display and security challenges associated with exhibiting Tutankhamun's burial mask reflect the broader issues facing museums that house priceless cultural artifacts. The mask requires specialized climate control, lighting, and security systems to ensure its preservation while allowing public access. The popularity of the artifact has necessitated crowd control measures and limits on exhibition time to prevent damage from excessive exposure to human breath and body heat. The canopic jars found in Egyptian tombs represent another important category of burial equipment. These containers held the preserved organs of the deceased and were protected by the 4 sons of Horus: Imseti, who protected the liver; Duamutef, who guarded the stomach; Hapi, who watched over the lungs; and Kebehsenuef, who protected the intestines. The jars were often made from limestone, alabaster, or other fine stones, and featured lids carved in the likeness of these protective deities. The discovery of intact tombs has provided archaeologists with invaluable information about ancient Egyptian technology, art, and daily life. The tomb of Yuya and Tuya, the parents of Queen Ti and grandparents of Akhenaten, contained remarkably well-preserved furniture, including chairs, beds, and chests that demonstrate the sophisticated woodworking techniques of ancient Egyptian craftsmen. The furniture was often covered with gold foil and inlaid with ivory, ebony, and precious stones, creating objects of extraordinary beauty and luxury. Textiles found in Egyptian tombs have also provided important insights into ancient weaving and dyeing techniques. The linen wrappings used for mummies were often of exceptionally fine quality, with thread counts that rival modern fabrics. Some mummies were wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen, demonstrating both the importance placed on proper preparation for the afterlife and the considerable resources devoted to burial practices. The preservation conditions in Egyptian tombs have also allowed for the survival of organic materials that would normally decay over time. Seeds, grains, and other food items have been found in many tombs, providing evidence of ancient agricultural practices and diet. Some tombs contained wine jars with their contents still intact, allowing modern researchers to analyze ancient Egyptian winemaking techniques and identify the grape varieties used thousands of years ago. The study of mummified remains has revealed fascinating details about health, diet, and disease in ancient Egypt. CT scans and other modern medical techniques have allowed researchers to examine mummies without unwrapping them, revealing information about age at death, cause of death, and various medical conditions. Some mummies show evidence of dental problems, arthritis, and other age-related conditions, while others display signs of trauma or infectious diseases. The analysis of hair and tissue samples from mummies has also provided insights into ancient Egyptian grooming practices and the use of cosmetics. Many mummies retain elaborate hairstyles and show evidence of hair treatments and styling products. The use of kohl around the eyes, which was both decorative and protective against eye infections, has been confirmed through chemical analysis of residues found on mummified remains. The tomb robbing that occurred throughout Egyptian history represents a constant threat to the preservation of these archaeological treasures. Most Egyptian tombs were looted within centuries or even decades of their construction, as the valuable grave goods they contained provided powerful incentives for theft. The tomb robbers developed sophisticated techniques for locating and entering burial chambers, often working with inside knowledge from the craftsmen who had built the tombs. The economics of tomb robbing created a complex underground economy that involved multiple levels of participants. Professional tomb robbers worked in organized gangs that specialized in identifying and penetrating burial sites. Middlemen purchased stolen goods and arranged for their transportation to markets in major cities. Corrupt officials sometimes provided protection or information in exchange for shares of the profits. This criminal network operated throughout Egyptian history and posed a constant challenge to tomb security. The methods used by ancient tomb robbers were surprisingly sophisticated and demonstrate detailed knowledge of tomb construction techniques. Robbers learned to identify the locations of hidden entrances, recognize the signs of valuable burials, and navigate complex passage systems designed to confuse intruders. They developed specialized tools for breaking through stone barriers and created techniques for quickly locating and removing the most valuable portable artifacts. The social and economic factors that drove tomb robbing were complex and changed over time. During periods of political instability or economic hardship, tomb robbing often increased as people sought alternative sources of income. The decline of state authority reduced the effectiveness of security measures, while inflation and currency debasement made precious metals and stones more valuable relative to other commodities. The legal consequences for tomb robbing were severe, with punishments ranging from beatings and mutilation to execution. Ancient Egyptian legal documents record numerous cases of tomb robbing trials, providing insights into the judicial processes used to prosecute these crimes. However, the potential rewards were so great that harsh punishments did not effectively deter determined thieves. The impact of tomb robbing on archaeological research has been devastating, as most of the contextual information that would help us understand ancient Egyptian burial practices has been lost. When artifacts are removed from their original locations and sold separately, researchers lose the ability to understand their relationships to other objects and their significance within the overall burial program. This loss of context has severely limited our understanding of ancient Egyptian culture and religion. The techniques used by ancient tomb robbers have been studied by modern archaeologists to better understand security measures and identify previously robbed tombs. Evidence of ancient break-ins can provide valuable information about tomb construction and the original contents of burial chambers. In some cases, items dropped or abandoned by ancient thieves have been recovered by modern excavations. The international market for stolen Egyptian artifacts continues to pose challenges for archaeological preservation and research. Modern tomb robbing, while illegal, still occurs in remote areas where security is limited. The demand from private collectors and unscrupulous dealers creates economic incentives for continued looting of archaeological sites. International efforts to combat the illegal antiquities trade have had limited success in stopping this destructive activity. The ancient Egyptians were well aware of the threat posed by tomb robbers, and incorporated various security measures into their burial practices. False passages, hidden chambers, and massive stone blocks were used to deter thieves and protect the burial chamber. Some tombs included curse inscriptions warning of divine punishment for those who disturbed the deceased, though these threats appear to have had limited effectiveness in preventing robbery. Despite these security measures, very few tombs have survived intact to modern times. The tomb of Tutankhamun is perhaps the most famous example of a largely undisturbed burial, though even it shows evidence of ancient robberies. The tomb appears to have been entered twice shortly after the burial, with some items stolen and others hastily replaced before the tomb was resealed. The modern exploration and excavation of Egyptian tombs began in earnest during the 19th century, as European interest in ancient Egypt grew and archaeological techniques became more sophisticated. Early excavators were often more interested in acquiring spectacular artifacts for museums and private collections than in understanding the archaeological context of their discoveries. This approach resulted in the loss of valuable information and the dispersal of tomb contents to collections around the world. The development of Egyptology as a scientific discipline was closely tied to the decipherment of hieroglyphics and the establishment of chronological frameworks for understanding Egyptian history. The work of scholars like Jean-François Champollion, who decoded the Rosetta Stone, provided the linguistic tools necessary for reading ancient Egyptian texts and understanding the religious and historical significance of tomb decorations. The establishment of archaeological institutions and museums in the 19th century created new opportunities for systematic study of Egyptian antiquities. The founding of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, the British Museum's Egyptian collection, and similar institutions in other European capitals provided venues for displaying and studying Egyptian artifacts. These institutions also sponsored excavations and supported scholarly research that advanced our understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization. The development of photography as an archaeological tool revolutionized the documentation of tomb discoveries. Early archaeological photographers like Francis Frith and Antonio Beato created comprehensive visual records of tomb interiors and artifacts that remain valuable research resources today. Photography allowed researchers to preserve detailed records of tomb decorations and inscriptions that might otherwise be lost to deterioration or damage. The colonial period in Egypt saw intense competition between different national archaeological missions for access to the most promising sites. French, British, German, and Italian expeditions competed for excavation rights and the most spectacular discoveries. This competition sometimes led to hasty excavation methods and inadequate documentation as teams rushed to uncover major finds before their rivals. The legal framework governing archaeological work in Egypt evolved significantly during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The establishment of the Egyptian Antiquities Service and the development of antiquities laws helped regulate excavation activities and ensure that important discoveries remained in Egypt. However, the division of finds between excavating missions and the Egyptian government continued until the mid-20th century. The training of Egyptian archaeologists began in the early 20th century with the establishment of archaeology programs at Egyptian universities. This development was crucial for ensuring that Egypt would eventually have the expertise necessary to manage its own archaeological heritage. The transition from foreign-dominated to Egyptian-led archaeology has been a gradual process that continues today. The technological advances of the 20th century transformed archaeological methods and opened new possibilities for tomb exploration. The development of electric lighting, mechanical excavation equipment, and scientific conservation techniques allowed archaeologists to work more efficiently and preserve discoveries more effectively. These technological improvements have continued to accelerate in recent decades with the introduction of computer databases, digital imaging, and remote sensing technologies. The work of archaeologists like Howard Carter and Flinders Petrie helped establish more scientific approaches to excavation that emphasized careful documentation and preservation. Carter's discovery and excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb set new standards for archaeological practice, with every object carefully recorded, photographed, and conserved before removal. The process took nearly 10 years to complete and generated a comprehensive record that continues to be studied by researchers today. Modern archaeological techniques have revolutionized the study of Egyptian tombs, allowing for non-invasive investigation methods that can reveal hidden chambers and passages without disturbing the structure. Ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and other remote sensing technologies have been used to map the internal structure of pyramids and tombs, leading to the discovery of previously unknown chambers and passages. The recent discovery of void spaces within the Great Pyramid using cosmic ray muography demonstrates the potential of modern technology to reveal new secrets about these ancient monuments. This technique, which detects variations in the density of stone by measuring the penetration of cosmic rays, has identified what appears to be a large chamber above the Grand Gallery that was previously unknown to archaeologists. The conservation of Egyptian tombs presents ongoing challenges for archaeologists and conservators. The increase in tourism over the past century has introduced moisture, carbon dioxide, and other pollutants into tomb environments that had remained stable for thousands of years. The breath of visitors, along with dust and vibration from foot traffic, has begun to damage delicate wall paintings and cause structural problems in some tombs. The development of visitor management systems has become essential for protecting tomb sites while allowing public access. Many tombs now have restricted visiting hours, limited group sizes, and controlled entry systems that regulate the number of people allowed inside at any given time. Some of the most fragile tombs have been closed to tourists entirely, with access limited to researchers and conservation specialists. The environmental monitoring systems installed in many tombs provide continuous data on temperature, humidity, air quality, and other factors that affect preservation. These systems allow conservators to identify problems before they cause irreversible damage and to implement appropriate mitigation measures. The data collected also helps researchers understand the environmental factors that contribute to tomb deterioration. The cleaning and stabilization of tomb wall paintings requires specialized techniques and materials developed specifically for Egyptian conditions. Traditional conservation methods developed in European climates are often inappropriate for Egypt's hot, dry environment. Conservators have had to develop new adhesives, consolidants, and protective coatings that can withstand the extreme temperature fluctuations and low humidity levels typical of desert environments. The structural conservation of tombs presents unique challenges that require expertise in both archaeology and engineering. Many tombs suffer from foundation problems, water damage, and structural instability that threaten both the safety of visitors and the preservation of decorations. The repair of these problems often requires extensive excavation and the installation of modern support systems that must be carefully integrated with ancient construction. The training of local conservation specialists has become a priority for international organizations working in Egypt. Programs that provide technical training in conservation methods, material science, and preventative care help ensure that Egypt has the expertise necessary to protect its archaeological heritage. This capacity building is essential for the long-term sustainability of conservation efforts. The documentation of tomb condition and conservation treatments has become increasingly sophisticated with the development of digital recording systems. High-resolution photography, 3D scanning, and detailed condition mapping provide comprehensive records of tomb preservation status and conservation interventions. These records are essential for monitoring changes over time and planning future conservation activities. The funding of tomb conservation is a constant challenge that requires cooperation between Egyptian authorities, international organizations, and private donors. The costs of maintaining tomb sites are substantial and ongoing, requiring sustained financial commitment from multiple sources. The development of sustainable funding models that can support long-term conservation efforts remains a priority for the archaeological community. Climate change poses additional threats to Egyptian archaeological sites, with rising groundwater levels and changing weather patterns affecting the stability of tombs and monuments. Salt crystallization, caused by fluctuating moisture levels, is causing the deterioration of stone surfaces and painted decorations. Conservation teams are working to develop new techniques for protecting these fragile sites while still allowing for scientific study and limited public access. The effects of climate change on Egyptian archaeology are becoming increasingly apparent and require urgent attention from the international community. Rising temperatures are accelerating the deterioration of organic materials and causing thermal expansion that damages stone structures. Changes in precipitation patterns, while still minimal in Egypt's desert environment, can cause flash floods that threaten archaeological sites in vulnerable locations. The monitoring of climate impacts on tomb sites has become a priority for conservation organizations working in Egypt. Long-term studies are tracking changes in temperature, humidity, and groundwater levels to identify trends that could affect site preservation. This data is essential for developing adaptation strategies and prioritizing conservation interventions. The development of climate-resilient conservation techniques is an active area of research that combines traditional methods with modern material science. New consolidants and protective coatings are being tested for their ability to withstand extreme temperature fluctuations and resist salt damage. These innovations may help protect tomb sites from the accelerating effects of climate change. The international cooperation required to address climate threats to Egyptian archaeology involves organizations from around the world. UNESCO, the World Bank, and various national governments have provided funding and expertise for climate adaptation projects. This global response reflects the universal significance of Egyptian cultural heritage and the shared responsibility for its protection. The education and awareness campaigns about climate impacts on cultural heritage have helped build public support for conservation efforts. These programs highlight the vulnerability of archaeological sites to environmental change and the urgent need for protective measures. Public understanding and support are essential for securing the political and financial commitment necessary for long-term conservation efforts. The repatriation of Egyptian artifacts from museums around the world has become an increasingly important issue in recent years. Many objects were removed from Egypt during the colonial period when archaeological practices and international law were very different from today's standards. Egypt has been actively seeking the return of significant artifacts, including the Rosetta Stone and the bust of Nefertiti, arguing that these objects are integral parts of Egyptian cultural heritage that should be displayed in their country of origin. The legal and ethical arguments surrounding artifact repatriation are complex and involve considerations of cultural heritage rights, museum responsibilities, and international law. Proponents of repatriation argue that cultural objects belong to the societies that created them and should be returned to their countries of origin. Museums and collectors often counter that they provide better conservation conditions and wider international access than might be available in origin countries. The practical challenges of repatriation include questions about the physical condition of artifacts, transportation risks, and the availability of appropriate storage and display facilities. Many artifacts have been in foreign museums for over a century and may be too fragile to move safely. The development of new packing and transportation techniques has made it possible to move even very delicate objects, but significant risks remain. The diplomatic negotiations involved in repatriation cases can be lengthy and complex, involving government officials, museum directors, and cultural heritage experts from multiple countries. These discussions often require compromises and creative solutions that address the interests of all parties involved. Some successful repatriation cases have established precedents that may influence future negotiations. The role of international organizations in mediating repatriation disputes has become increasingly important. UNESCO and other bodies have developed guidelines and procedures for addressing cultural heritage claims while respecting the legitimate interests of all parties. These frameworks provide structured processes for negotiating repatriation agreements and resolving disputes. The economic implications of repatriation extend beyond the immediate costs of transportation and installation to include the long-term impacts on tourism, research, and cultural development. The return of major artifacts to Egypt has the potential to boost tourism revenue and enhance Egypt's cultural profile internationally. However, museums that lose important artifacts may suffer reduced attendance and prestige. The technological solutions to repatriation disputes include the creation of high-quality replicas and digital reconstructions that can satisfy some of the interests of both origin countries and holding institutions. Advanced 3D scanning and printing technologies can create extremely accurate copies that provide educational and research value while allowing original artifacts to return home. The cultural impact of successful repatriation cases extends beyond the individual objects involved to encompass broader questions of cultural identity and heritage ownership. The return of significant artifacts can strengthen cultural pride and identity while demonstrating respect for the rights and interests of origin communities. These symbolic effects may be as important as the practical benefits of repatriation. The development of new museums in Egypt, including the Grand Egyptian Museum near Giza and the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization in Cairo, has provided world-class facilities for the display and study of Egyptian artifacts. These institutions incorporate the latest in climate control, security, and conservation technology to ensure the long-term preservation of Egypt's archaeological treasures. The Grand Egyptian Museum represents the culmination of decades of planning and construction to create a facility worthy of Egypt's incredible archaeological heritage. Located just 2 kilometers from the Giza pyramids, the museum covers over 120 acres and includes exhibition halls, conservation laboratories, research facilities, and educational centers. The building itself is an architectural marvel that incorporates both modern design elements and references to ancient Egyptian aesthetics. The collection planning for the Grand Egyptian Museum has involved careful selection and preparation of over 100,000 artifacts that will tell the complete story of ancient Egyptian civilization. The museum will house the complete Tutankhamun collection for the first time, displaying all 5,398 objects found in the young pharaoh's tomb in specially designed galleries. Other major collections will include royal mummies, pyramid artifacts, and treasures from various periods of Egyptian history. The conservation facilities at the Grand Egyptian Museum are among the most advanced in the world, featuring specialized laboratories for different types of materials and artifacts. The museum includes facilities for treating stone, metal, organic materials, and composite objects, with equipment for X-ray analysis, chemical treatment, and structural stabilization. These facilities will serve not only the museum's own collection, but also artifacts from archaeological sites throughout Egypt. The educational programs developed for Egypt's new museums reflect modern approaches to public engagement and cultural interpretation. Interactive exhibits, multimedia presentations, and hands-on activities are designed to make ancient Egyptian culture accessible to visitors of all ages and backgrounds. Special programs for schools, families, and international tourists help ensure that the museums serve diverse audiences effectively. The research facilities associated with Egypt's new museums provide unprecedented opportunities for scholarly investigation of Egyptian artifacts and culture. Digital archives, reference libraries, and collaborative workspaces support both Egyptian and international researchers working on various aspects of ancient Egyptian civilization. These facilities help ensure that museum collections contribute to ongoing scholarly research and discovery. The economic impact of Egypt's new museums is expected to be substantial, with projections suggesting that the Grand Egyptian Museum alone could attract over 8 million visitors annually. This level of tourism would generate significant revenue for Egypt's economy, while providing employment opportunities for thousands of people. The museums also serve as catalysts for broader economic development in their surrounding areas. The international partnerships that have supported the development of Egypt's new museums demonstrate the global significance of Egyptian cultural heritage. Funding and technical assistance from Japan, the United States, European Union, and other partners reflect the international community's commitment to preserving and presenting Egypt's archaeological treasures. These partnerships also facilitate ongoing collaboration in research and conservation activities. Digital technology has also opened new possibilities for sharing Egyptian tomb discoveries with audiences around the world. Virtual reality reconstructions allow people to explore tomb chambers and examine artifacts in detail without traveling to Egypt or risking damage to the actual sites. High-resolution scanning and 3D modeling techniques are creating permanent digital records of tombs and artifacts that will preserve this information for future generations. The development of virtual tomb experiences represents a revolutionary approach to cultural heritage presentation that could transform how people interact with ancient sites. These immersive technologies allow visitors to walk through tomb chambers, examine wall decorations up close, and even witness ancient burial ceremonies through computer-generated reconstructions. The level of detail achievable with modern scanning and rendering techniques can reveal aspects of tomb decoration that are difficult to see in person. The educational applications of digital tomb reconstruction extend far beyond virtual tourism to encompass formal education and research applications. Students and researchers around the world can now access detailed models of tomb sites for study and analysis without the expense and logistics of travel to Egypt. These digital resources are particularly valuable for universities and museums that cannot afford to send students and faculty to Egypt regularly. The preservation benefits of digital tomb documentation are increasingly important as original sites face ongoing threats from tourism, climate change, and natural deterioration. High-resolution scans create permanent records that can be used to monitor changes in tomb condition over time and potentially guide restoration efforts if damage occurs. These digital archives serve as insurance policies against the loss of irreplaceable cultural heritage. The technological challenges involved in creating accurate digital reconstructions of tomb sites are considerable and require expertise in multiple fields. 3D scanning specialists must work with archaeologists, conservators, and computer graphics experts to ensure that digital models accurately represent both the current condition of sites and their original appearance. The processing power required for handling large data sets and creating realistic renderings continues to push the boundaries of available technology. The accessibility benefits of digital tomb experiences include the ability to provide detailed narration, translation, and interpretive information that enhances understanding for diverse audiences. Visitors can access multiple layers of information about tomb decorations, religious symbolism, and historical context that would be impossible to provide in traditional site visits. These resources can be customized for different age groups, educational levels, and cultural backgrounds. The collaborative potential of digital tomb documentation enables researchers from different institutions and countries to work together on shared datasets and analyses. International teams can examine the same digital artifacts simultaneously, share observations and hypotheses in real time, and develop collaborative research projects that would be difficult to coordinate using traditional methods. This global collaboration accelerates research and ensures that diverse perspectives contribute to our understanding of Egyptian culture. The commercial applications of digital tomb technology include the development of museum exhibitions, educational software, and entertainment products that bring ancient Egypt to new audiences. High-quality digital reconstructions can form the basis for museum installations, documentary films, and interactive games that engage people who might never otherwise encounter Egyptian archaeology. These commercial applications help fund continued research and development in digital heritage technology. The study of Egyptian tombs continues to yield new discoveries and insights into one of the world's most fascinating ancient civilizations. Recent excavations in the Valley of the Kings have uncovered previously unknown tombs and provided new evidence about royal burial practices during the New Kingdom period. The tomb of Amenhotep III, currently being excavated by a joint Egyptian-Spanish team, has revealed spectacular wall paintings and artifacts that are expanding our understanding of this important pharaoh's reign. The recent discovery of a cache of 30 intact sarcophagi at Saqqara represents one of the most significant archaeological finds in Egypt in recent years. These Middle Kingdom burials, found in a deep shaft tomb, contained well-preserved mummies and grave goods that provide new insights into burial practices of the period. The discovery demonstrates that major archaeological treasures remain to be uncovered throughout Egypt's vast necropolis sites. The ongoing excavation of the tomb of Wati at Saqqara has revealed remarkable scenes of daily life in ancient Egypt, including detailed depictions of bread making, beer brewing, and religious ceremonies. The tomb's owner was a high-ranking priest during the 5th dynasty, and the decorative program provides unprecedented detail about religious practices and social life during the Old Kingdom period. The preservation of colors and artistic detail in this tomb is exceptional. The discovery of a previously unknown pyramid at Dashur in 2017 demonstrates that even the most extensively studied areas of Egypt can still yield major archaeological surprises. The pyramid, dating to the 13th dynasty, was identified through analysis of satellite imagery and confirmed through excavation. While modest in size compared to the Great Pyramids of Giza, this discovery shows that pyramid construction continued for longer than previously thought. The investigation of worker cemeteries associated with pyramid construction has provided new insights into the lives and health of the people who built Egypt's most famous monuments. Recent studies of skeletal remains from these cemeteries have revealed information about diet, health conditions, and working conditions of pyramid builders. The evidence confirms that pyramid construction involved large numbers of well-fed, healthy workers rather than oppressed slaves. The analysis of ancient Egyptian DNA from mummified remains has begun to reveal information about population genetics, family relationships, and disease patterns in ancient Egypt. Recent studies have confirmed the parentage of several royal mummies, and identified genetic conditions that affected ancient Egyptian rulers. This research is providing new perspectives on Egyptian history and the health challenges faced by ancient populations. The application of portable X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to tomb wall paintings has revealed new information about ancient Egyptian pigments and painting techniques. This non-destructive analysis can identify the chemical composition of paints and detect underlying sketches or alterations that are invisible to the naked eye. The technique has been used to study paintings in multiple tombs and has provided insights into artistic workshops and painting traditions. The use of ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistivity surveys has identified numerous previously unknown chambers and passages in existing tomb complexes. These geophysical techniques allow archaeologists to map underground structures without excavation, helping to identify areas of interest for future investigation. Recent surveys in the Valley of the Kings have identified several anomalies that may represent undiscovered tomb chambers. The investigation of non-royal tombs has also provided important information about ancient Egyptian society and culture. The tomb of Maya, treasurer under Tutankhamun, was rediscovered in the 1980s and has yielded remarkable artifacts and inscriptions that illuminate the political and economic conditions during the late 18th dynasty. These discoveries demonstrate that significant archaeological treasures remain to be uncovered in Egypt's vast necropolis sites. The application of new analytical techniques to museum collections has also led to important discoveries about objects that have been known for decades or centuries. X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, infrared photography, and other non-invasive techniques are revealing hidden details about the construction and decoration of artifacts, sometimes uncovering evidence of ancient repairs, alterations, or reuse. The interdisciplinary nature of modern Egyptology brings together archaeologists, historians, art historians, conservators, scientists, and digital specialists to create a comprehensive understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization. This collaborative approach has led to new insights about the social, economic, religious, and technological aspects of ancient Egyptian culture that would not be possible through any single disciplinary perspective. The training of Egyptian archaeologists and conservators has become an important priority for international organizations and universities working in Egypt. Programs that provide advanced technical training and equipment help ensure that Egypt has the capacity to manage and protect its own archaeological heritage. This investment in human resources is essential for the long-term preservation and study of Egyptian tombs and other archaeological sites. The ethical dimensions of tomb exploration and museum display have also become increasingly important considerations in Egyptology. Questions about the appropriateness of disturbing human remains, the display of mummies, and the cultural sensitivity of exhibition practices are being actively debated within the archaeological and museum communities. These discussions reflect broader changes in attitudes toward indigenous cultures and the rights of ancient peoples. The economic impact of Egyptian tomb discoveries extends far beyond the archaeological community, contributing significantly to Egypt's tourism industry and international reputation. The discovery of new tombs or significant artifacts generates worldwide media attention and attracts visitors from around the globe. This economic dimension creates both opportunities and challenges for site management and conservation. The role of tomb discoveries in shaping popular perceptions of ancient Egypt cannot be overstated. The treasures of Tutankhamun, the mysteries of the pyramids, and the romance of archaeological discovery have captured public imagination for over a century. While this popular interest has sometimes led to sensationalized or inaccurate portrayals of ancient Egyptian culture, it has also generated support for archaeological research and conservation efforts. The continuing discoveries in Egyptian tombs remind us that there is still much to learn about this remarkable civilization. Each new find adds another piece to the complex puzzle of ancient Egyptian society, revealing new aspects of their beliefs, practices, and achievements. The sophisticated understanding of astronomy evident in tomb alignments and ceiling decorations, the advanced medical knowledge demonstrated by mummification techniques, and the remarkable artistic achievements visible in tomb paintings all testify to the intellectual and cultural accomplishments of the ancient Egyptians. The preservation of Egyptian tombs for future generations requires ongoing vigilance and investment in conservation technology and techniques. The challenges posed by environmental change, tourism pressure, and urban development near archaeological sites require innovative solutions and international cooperation. The development of sustainable tourism practices that allow for public access while protecting fragile archaeological sites is an ongoing challenge that requires careful balance between preservation and accessibility. The documentation and study of Egyptian tombs also depends on the continued development of new technologies and methodologies. Advances in imaging technology, chemical analysis, and data management systems are constantly opening new possibilities for understanding these ancient monuments. The integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques may soon allow for the automated analysis of vast databases of archaeological information, potentially revealing patterns and connections that would be impossible to detect through traditional analytical methods. The global significance of Egyptian tomb discoveries extends beyond their archaeological and historical importance to encompass their role in human cultural heritage. These monuments represent some of humanity's earliest attempts to grapple with questions of mortality, spirituality, and the meaning of existence. The artistic and architectural achievements they represent continue to inspire and influence contemporary culture, from architecture and art to literature and film. The secrets of ancient Egyptian tombs continue to unfold as new discoveries are made and new analytical techniques are developed. The recent identification of previously unknown chambers in the Great Pyramid, the ongoing excavation of intact tombs in various necropolis sites, and the application of advanced scientific techniques to museum collections all promise to yield new insights into this fascinating civilization. Recent discoveries in the Saqqara necropolis have revealed dozens of intact coffins and thousands of artifacts that are expanding our understanding of burial practices during different periods of Egyptian history. These finds include beautifully decorated wooden coffins, elaborate burial masks, and religious artifacts that demonstrate the continuity and evolution of Egyptian funerary traditions over many centuries. The application of advanced imaging techniques to previously studied artifacts continues to reveal new details about ancient Egyptian craftsmanship and technology. High-resolution CT scans of mummies have identified previously unknown medical conditions, evidence of ancient surgical procedures, and details about mummification techniques that were not visible through traditional examination methods. The analysis of ancient DNA extracted from mummified remains is providing new insights into the genetic relationships between different royal families and the population movements that shaped ancient Egyptian society. These studies have confirmed some historical records while challenging other traditional assumptions about Egyptian dynasties and foreign influences. The study of ancient Egyptian climate and environment through the analysis of pollen, seeds, and other organic materials found in tombs is revealing important information about agricultural practices, diet, and environmental conditions in ancient Egypt. This research helps contextualize tomb construction within broader patterns of social and economic development. The investigation of quarry sites and transportation routes used for tomb construction has provided new insights into the logistics and organization of ancient Egyptian building projects. Recent discoveries of harbor installations, ramps, and tool deposits have helped archaeologists understand how massive stone blocks were moved from quarries to construction sites across hundreds of miles. The development of new conservation techniques specifically designed for Egyptian artifacts has helped preserve important discoveries for future study. Innovative methods for stabilizing fragile papyri, consolidating deteriorating stone surfaces, and removing harmful salts from artifacts are extending the lifespan of these irreplaceable cultural treasures. The creation of detailed 3D models of tomb chambers and artifacts is enabling new forms of analysis and presentation. These digital reconstructions can be manipulated and examined in ways that are impossible with physical objects, while also providing permanent records that will preserve information about artifacts even if the originals are lost or damaged. The interdisciplinary collaboration between Egyptologists, conservators, scientists, and technology specialists continues to generate new approaches to studying Egyptian tombs. This collaborative model has proven effective in addressing complex research questions that require expertise from multiple fields, and is likely to become even more important as technology continues to advance. The public engagement with Egyptian tomb research through social media, online exhibitions, and virtual reality experiences is creating new audiences for archaeological research. These digital platforms allow researchers to share their discoveries immediately with global audiences and receive feedback that can inform future research directions. The ongoing debates about the repatriation of Egyptian artifacts and the ethics of tomb exploration reflect broader changes in attitudes toward cultural heritage and indigenous rights. These discussions are shaping new approaches to archaeological research that prioritize collaboration with local communities and respect for cultural sensitivities. The story of Egyptian tomb exploration also reflects broader themes in the history of archaeology and the development of scientific methodology. The evolution from treasure hunting to systematic archaeological investigation mirrors changes in scholarly approaches and ethical standards that have transformed the field over the past 2 centuries. The increasing emphasis on conservation, documentation, and international cooperation in archaeological work represents important progress in the responsible stewardship of cultural heritage. As we look to the future, the study of Egyptian tombs will undoubtedly continue to benefit from technological advances and new analytical approaches. Virtual and augmented reality technologies may soon allow for immersive exploration of tomb chambers without physical access, while advances in material science may provide new conservation techniques for preserving these fragile monuments. The digitization of archaeological records and artifacts is creating new opportunities for comparative analysis and the identification of previously unrecognized patterns. The development of portable analytical equipment has revolutionized fieldwork capabilities, allowing archaeologists to conduct sophisticated chemical and physical analyses on site rather than waiting for laboratory results. Handheld X-ray fluorescence spectrometers can identify the elemental composition of artifacts and pigments, while portable infrared cameras can reveal hidden inscriptions and decorative details that are invisible to the naked eye. The use of drone technology and satellite imagery has transformed archaeological survey methods, enabling researchers to identify potential tomb sites and monitor the condition of known monuments from above. High-resolution satellite images can reveal subtle topographical features that indicate the presence of buried structures, while thermal imaging can detect underground voids that may represent tomb chambers. Ground-penetrating radar and other geophysical survey techniques have become increasingly sophisticated, allowing archaeologists to map underground structures without excavation. These non-invasive methods are particularly valuable in sensitive areas where traditional excavation might damage important archaeological remains, or where political or practical considerations limit access. The integration of multiple data sources through geographic information systems has enabled more comprehensive analysis of tomb sites and their relationships to the broader landscape. GIS technology allows researchers to combine archaeological, geological, and environmental data to understand how ancient Egyptians selected tomb locations and organized their necropolises. Crowdsourcing and citizen science initiatives are beginning to play important roles in Egyptian archaeology, with volunteers around the world contributing to the analysis of satellite imagery and the transcription of archaeological records. These collaborative approaches can process large amounts of data more quickly than traditional research methods while engaging the public in archaeological discovery. The ethical considerations surrounding the study and display of human remains have become increasingly important in Egyptian archaeology. Museums and research institutions are developing new policies regarding the treatment of mummified remains that respect both scientific research needs and cultural sensitivities. These discussions reflect broader changes in museum practice and the recognition of indigenous rights. The development of sustainable tourism models for Egyptian tomb sites requires careful balance between public access and conservation needs. Visitor management systems, replica tombs, and virtual reality experiences are being explored as ways to reduce pressure on original monuments while still providing meaningful educational experiences for tourists. International collaboration in Egyptian archaeology has evolved from the colonial-era division of finds to more equitable partnerships that recognize Egyptian ownership of cultural heritage. Modern excavation agreements typically specify that all artifacts remain in Egypt, while digital documentation and research data are shared internationally to facilitate scholarly collaboration. The training of local communities in archaeological techniques and conservation methods has become an important component of many international projects. This capacity building ensures that archaeological work can continue even when foreign missions are not present, and provides economic opportunities for people living near important archaeological sites. The enduring fascination with Egyptian tombs speaks to fundamental human interests in death, spirituality, and the quest for immortality. The elaborate preparations that the ancient Egyptians made for the afterlife reflect universal concerns about mortality and the desire for some form of continuation beyond death. While our understanding of death and the afterlife may differ from that of the ancient Egyptians, we can still appreciate the sophistication of their responses to these profound questions.
The psychological aspects of ancient Egyptian burial practices reveal deep insights into human nature and our relationship with mortality.
The meticulous attention to preserving the body, the elaborate provisions for the afterlife journey, and the complex religious rituals surrounding death all demonstrate humanity's fundamental inability to accept the finality of death. These practices represent sophisticated coping mechanisms that helped individuals and communities process grief and maintain connections with deceased loved ones. The social functions of tomb construction extended far beyond religious considerations to encompass political, economic, and cultural dimensions. The building of elaborate tombs served as public demonstrations of wealth and power, with rulers competing to create monuments that would surpass those of their predecessors. These projects also provided employment for thousands of workers and stimulated economic activity throughout Egypt. The artistic legacy of Egyptian tombs continues to influence contemporary culture in numerous ways. The distinctive visual style of Egyptian art, with its characteristic conventions of proportion, perspective, and symbolic representation, has inspired artists, designers, and architects for thousands of years. From Art Deco buildings of the 1920s to modern graphic design, Egyptian artistic motifs remain powerful and recognizable symbols. The scientific knowledge preserved in Egyptian tombs encompasses fields ranging from astronomy and mathematics to medicine and chemistry. The astronomical ceilings found in many tombs demonstrate sophisticated understanding of celestial movements and their religious significance. The mathematical precision of pyramid construction reveals advanced knowledge of geometry and engineering principles that influenced architectural development throughout the ancient world. The linguistic heritage of ancient Egypt, preserved in thousands of hieroglyphic inscriptions found in tombs, has provided invaluable information about the development of writing systems and language evolution.
The gradual changes in Egyptian language over 3 millennia of recorded history offer unique insights into how languages change over time and how writing systems adapt to serve different social and religious functions.
The medical knowledge demonstrated by Egyptian mummification practices was remarkably advanced for its time. Embalmers possessed detailed understanding of human anatomy, knowledge of preservative chemicals, and surgical skills that would not be matched in other cultures for centuries. This medical expertise contributed to Egypt's reputation throughout the ancient world as a center of healing and medical knowledge. The technological innovations developed for tomb construction had far-reaching impacts on ancient engineering and architecture. Techniques for quarrying, transporting, and precisely fitting massive stone blocks were later applied to the construction of temples, palaces, and other monumental buildings. The organizational systems developed for managing large construction projects influenced administrative practices throughout the ancient Near East. The environmental engineering demonstrated in Egyptian tombs reveals sophisticated understanding of climate control and preservation techniques. The ability to create stable microclimates within tomb chambers, manage moisture levels, and prevent insect and rodent intrusions required detailed knowledge of environmental factors and their effects on organic materials. The global influence of Egyptian tomb discoveries extends beyond archaeology and history to impact fields such as museum studies, conservation science, and cultural tourism. The methods developed for preserving and displaying Egyptian artifacts have been applied to collections from many other cultures, while the popularity of Egyptian exhibitions has helped establish museums as important cultural and educational institutions. The artistic achievements preserved in Egyptian tombs represent some of humanity's greatest cultural treasures. The wall paintings, sculptures, jewelry, and other artifacts found in these burial sites demonstrate remarkable technical skill and artistic vision. The symbolic programs that governed the decoration of tombs reveal sophisticated theological and philosophical concepts that influenced religious and artistic traditions throughout the ancient world and continue to resonate today. The architectural innovations evident in Egyptian tomb construction have influenced building techniques and design principles for thousands of years. The precision of pyramid construction, the engineering solutions developed for moving massive stone blocks, and the complex systems of passages and chambers found in rock-cut tombs all represent significant technological achievements that pushed the boundaries of what was possible with ancient tools and techniques. The social and economic implications of tomb construction also provide important insights into ancient Egyptian society. The resources required to build and furnish elaborate tombs reveal information about wealth distribution, craft specialization, and the organization of large-scale projects. The employment of skilled artisans, the procurement of exotic materials, and the coordination of complex construction projects all required sophisticated administrative and logistical capabilities. The religious and philosophical dimensions of Egyptian tomb practices continue to offer valuable perspectives on ancient approaches to spirituality and the afterlife. The detailed textual and artistic programs found in tombs provide comprehensive documentation of ancient Egyptian religious beliefs and practices. The integration of astronomical knowledge, magical practices, and ethical teachings in tomb decoration demonstrates the sophisticated intellectual traditions that flourished in ancient Egypt. Good night.